You know that uncomfortable feeling when someone deliberately avoids you? Picture this. You're walking down the street and spot someone you know on the other side. Your eyes meet briefly, but they immediately look away and change direction. Sound familiar? That seemingly inexplicable behavior reveals profound truths about the human psyche that most people never understand. Sigmund Freud taught us that avoidance is never random. It's an unconscious defense mechanism, a strategy the mind employs to shield us from emotions too intense or uncomfortable to face. When someone avoids you, they're not running from you. They're running from what you represent in their inner world. Today, you'll discover 6 hidden signals that reveal what's really happening in the mind of someone who avoids you. Get ready to see human relationships in a completely new light. If you want to keep exploring the secrets of human behavior, subscribe to the channel. The first signal I'm about to reveal might forever change how you interpret your relationships with others. The first signal is devastating in its simplicity. When someone systematically avoids your gaze, they're not just avoiding you, they're avoiding the emotional intimacy that eye contact brings. Picture yourself at a dinner with friends and noticing that one specific person never looks you directly in the eyes. When you speak, their eyes wander around the room, focus on their phone, or always find something else interesting to observe. This behavior, according to Freud, reveals a profound internal conflict. Gaze avoidance is a defense mechanism the unconscious activates when we perceive the other person as a threat to our emotional stability. Not a physical threat, but an emotional one. Eyes are called windows to the soul, precisely because through our gaze, we transmit and receive authentic emotions, vulnerabilities, repressed desires. When someone avoids your gaze, their unconscious is saying, I cannot allow myself to be vulnerable with this person. But there's more. Freud spoke of projection. We often project our deepest fears and desires onto others. Someone who avoids your gaze might be struggling with feelings they can't accept. Perhaps they feel attraction, and it scares them. Maybe they sense envy or repressed anger, or perhaps you simply represent something they desire to be but can't admit. Gaze avoidance is also an attempt to maintain control. Direct eye contact creates connection, and connection implies loss of emotional control. Those who fear losing this control prefer building invisible barriers rather than risking being truly seen. Have you ever noticed this pattern in yourself? Have you ever caught yourself avoiding someone's gaze who made you feel too emotionally exposed? But the gaze is just the beginning. The second signal touches something even deeper. Body language and the messages it sends without our awareness. The second signal is written in the silent language of the body. When someone avoids you, their body tells a story that words never will. Imagine finding yourself in a social situation and observing a person who, every time you approach, assumes a closed posture, crossed arms, shoulders turned away, steps that subtly distance them from you. According to Freudian psychoanalysis, these gestures aren't random. They're physical manifestations of deep psychic conflicts. Freud maintained that the body is the unconscious made visible. When the rational mind tries to repress certain feelings, the body expresses them anyway through postures, gestures, and involuntary movements. Someone who physically avoids you is literally embodying their emotional resistance. Crossed arms, for example, aren't just a defensive posture. They represent a symbolic attempt to create a barrier between oneself and the object of desire or fear. It's as if the unconscious was saying, I must protect myself from what this person makes me feel. Often those who assume this posture are struggling with repressed attraction, unacknowledged envy, or feelings of inadequacy. Turning one's back is even more revealing. Freud spoke of reaction formation. When we experience feelings we consider unacceptable, we transform them into their opposite. Someone who turns their back on you might actually desire your attention more than anyone else, but transforms this desire into apparent indifference. Then there's the phenomenon of exaggerated personal space. Someone who always maintains excessive physical distance from you is unconsciously communicating their need for control. Physical proximity activates primitive emotions that the rational ego struggles to manage. Maintaining distance means maintaining control over one's impulses, but the body reveals more. Increased nervousness in your presence, self-comforting gestures like touching hair or adjusting clothes, restlessness, all signals that betray emotional activation the person is trying to hide. Have you ever noticed how your body reacts when you want to avoid someone? Do your shoulders stiffen? Do your arms close? The body cannot lie. But there's a third signal, even more subtle and revealing, how they change their social habits when you're present. The third signal is one of the most powerful, when someone starts changing their social habits to avoid encountering you. This behavior reveals that your presence has such a strong emotional impact that it forces the unconscious to reorganize daily life. Picture this situation. A person who regularly frequented certain places, events, or social groups suddenly stops doing so precisely when you start frequenting them. It's not coincidence. It's the unconscious rewriting the map of habits to avoid the emotional activation your presence entails. According to Freud, this phenomenon is called systematic avoidance and is one of the most sophisticated defense mechanisms. The unconscious mind literally creates new behavioral pathways to circumvent the source of emotional conflict. It's as if the brain was saying, if I can't control my feelings toward this person, I'll at least control where and when I encounter them. This change in habits reveals the intensity of internal conflict. A person emotionally neutral toward you would never feel the need to reorganize their social life. Only when feelings are intense, whether repressed attraction, envy, guilt, or fear of intimacy, does the unconscious activate such elaborate avoidance mechanism. There's also an aspect of environmental control. Someone who changes their habits to avoid you is unconsciously trying to maintain control over their emotional states. It's easier to manage complex feelings if you can predict when and where they might be activated. Avoidance thus becomes a strategy for emotional self-regulation. But there's something paradoxical in all this. The more someone organizes their life to avoid you, the more they demonstrate how much space you occupy in their mind. It's like the famous pink elephant experiment. The more you try not to think about it, the more you think about it. Someone who changes their habits to avoid you is unconsciously putting you at the center of their thoughts. Freud called this phenomenon return of the repressed. What we try to avoid ends up dominating our behaviors. Avoidance thus becomes a paradoxical form of obsession. Have you ever noticed someone who changed their social routines when you entered their life? Or have you ever done this type of avoidance yourself? But the fourth signal is even more subtle and touches the world of digital communication, where the unconscious manifests in new and revealing ways. The fourth signal is dramatically modern, yet psychologically ancient. Messages that remain deliberately unread, responses that arrive after days, read receipts without replies. In the digital age, avoidance has found new and sophisticated forms of expression. Imagine sending a message to someone and seeing it was read but receiving no response for hours or days, when you know perfectly well that person is active on social media. Or worse, your messages remain delivered but never opened, while you see the person is online and responding to others. According to Freudian psychoanalysis, this behavior reveals profound emotional conflicts. Digital avoidance is a modern form of what Freud called ambivalence, the coexistence of opposite feelings toward the same person. Someone who leaves your messages unanswered is unconsciously struggling between the desire to communicate with you and the fear of what this communication might emotionally awaken. Read without response is particularly revealing. It means the person had the curiosity to read your message, so they're not completely indifferent, but lack the emotional courage to respond. It's as if the unconscious were saying, I want to know what they're saying, but I can't allow myself to enter into conversation. Then there's the phenomenon of strategic delay, always responding after many hours or days, even to simple messages. It's not disorganization, it's control. Someone who adopts this behavior is unconsciously trying to prove to themselves that they can manage the emotional intensity your presence entails. The delay becomes a form of self-regulation. I'll respond when I feel emotionally ready. But there's an even deeper aspect. Freud spoke of transference. We often project onto one person feelings that belong to other relationships from our past. Someone who avoids your digital communication might not be avoiding you, but the emotions you unconsciously awaken linked to significant figures from their past. Digital avoidance also reveals the need for control over intimacy. A message is an invitation to emotional intimacy, even when it seems trivial. Someone who avoids responding is unconsciously protecting themselves from a level of connection they fear they cannot manage. Have you ever noticed these patterns in your digital communications? Or have you ever avoided responding to someone out of fear of what the conversation might bring up? But the fifth signal touches something even more personal: how they behave when talking about you with others. The fifth signal is one of the most revealing and painful. When someone who avoids you starts talking about you obsessively with other people. This behavior, according to Freud, reveals that you occupy such an important emotional space in their psyche that they cannot process these feelings privately. Imagine discovering that a person who barely speaks to you constantly talks about you with mutual friends, colleagues, or acquaintances. Maybe they criticize your choices, analyze your behaviors, or simply mention you often in conversations. This is what Freud called displacement, shifting onto others the emotional intensity they cannot manage directly with the person involved. Someone who talks obsessively about you to others is unconsciously trying to process complex feelings through others' judgment. It's as if they were asking the external world to help them understand what they really feel. Often behind apparently negative criticisms, hide feelings of attraction, admiration, or envy that the person cannot admit even to themselves. Then there's the phenomenon of emotional triangulation, involving other people to indirectly manage the relationship with you. Someone who cannot directly confront their own feelings seeks allies or accomplices who confirm their version of reality. It's a way to feel less alone in the emotional conflict you're generating in their psyche. But there's something even deeper. According to psychoanalysis, when someone talks obsessively about a person they avoid, they're actually trying to exorcise that person's presence from their mind. It's as if they hoped that by talking about them enough with others, they could finally free themselves emotionally. Naturally, they achieve the opposite effect. The more they talk about them, the more central that person becomes in their thoughts. Freud also spoke of social reaction formation, transforming unacceptable feelings into their public opposite. Someone who constantly criticizes you to others might be hiding feelings of admiration or attraction they consider inadmissible. Criticism becomes a form of social defense against what they really feel. Talking about you to others also reveals an attempt at narrative control. Someone who cannot control you directly tries at least to control others' perception of you. It's an indirect way of exercising power over someone who has too much emotional power over them. Have you ever discovered that someone who avoided you often talked about you with others? How did you feel? And have you ever done this type of behavior yourself? But the sixth and final signal is the most powerful of all, the one that reveals the true meaning behind all this avoidance. The sixth and final signal is devastating in its truth. Observe how they react to important events in your life: successes, failures, joys, sorrows. Their reaction, or lack thereof, reveals everything you need to know about their true feelings. Imagine getting a job promotion, going through a difficult time, or experiencing a significant event. A person who avoids you but feels intense feelings toward you will never be able to remain completely indifferent. According to Freud, the unconscious knows no indifference. Where there are repressed feelings, there's always an emotional reaction, even when it's masked. Someone who feels repressed attraction toward you will react to your successes with a mixture of hidden admiration and envy. They might not congratulate you directly, but will seek information about your results through others, or make ambivalent comments that reveal how emotionally involved they are in your life. Conversely, someone who feels inadequacy or pure envy will react to your successes with attempts to diminish them, or with silences that speak louder than 1,000 words. The inability to rejoice in your results reveals how much space you occupy in their psyche as a constant comparison point. But it's in moments of pain that truth emerges most forcefully. Someone who avoids you, but feels authentic feelings toward you, will not be able to remain completely indifferent to your suffering. Even if they don't approach directly, they'll seek news about your states through others, or show subtle signs of concern that betray their emotional involvement. Freud called this phenomenon emotional leak. Repressed emotions always find a way out, even when the rational mind tries to suppress them. Total indifference is almost impossible when intense feelings are at play. Even those who try to seem completely detached end up betraying themselves through small gestures, glances, or involuntary reactions. Then there's the phenomenon of delayed reaction. Someone who avoids you might not react immediately to events in your life, but do so indirectly or postponed when they think no one can connect their reaction to you. It's the unconscious finding creative ways to express what the rational mind forbids. The reaction to events in your life is the most accurate thermometer of the emotional intensity you generate in someone who avoids you. True indifference is rare. Usually what seems like detachment is actually forced emotional control hiding very intense feeling. Have you ever noticed how someone who avoids you reacts when something important happens to you? Did their reaction reveal something you didn't know? Freud taught us that avoidance is never empty. It's always full of meaning. Someone who avoids you isn't indifferent to you. On the contrary, they feel feelings so intense that the only way to manage them is distance. Avoidance is often the most powerful form of attention someone can give you. But now tell me, after discovering these signals, do you see any situation in your life in a different light? Have you recognized any of these behaviors in people you thought were simply indifferent to you? What city are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let me know. If this touched you in any way, like the video and subscribe to the channel.